Saga is a historical wargame for 2 or more players that focus on battles in medieval, ancient, and even fantasy worlds. The game allows players to take on the role of commander in large skirmishes, primarily with 28mm figures. The game was first launched back in 2011 and originally focused purely on the dark medieval Viking Age, hence its name. Saga, a Norse epic about the heroic deeds of fearless warriors, which players also try to do on tabletop. An expansion on the Crusades and the fall of Rome was eventually released, whereupon the game got a second edition in 2018, which now gets a reprint for Christmas 2022, complete with new facts and errata, and a batch of rulebooks for each period since. For the second edition of Saga, the game publisher Studio Tomahawk has switched to the model it follows for its other main game, Muskets and Tomahawks, which is that it publishes a generic rulebooks that describe the basic mechanics of the game, how to move, fight, shoot, etc., with all the rules for armies, and then publish books with the rules for units. This system has its advantage and, well, disadvantages. The biggest advantage is that you only learn one set of custom rules. Then you can add books for the periods and you can play several armies from different periods in one basic rulebook because the mechanics are the same and for everywhere, and the only rules for each army are changing. Which is good for people who have a large collection of figures and don't have time to learn new rules that for each period, and one system now takes care of all of it. The disadvantage, of course, is that in theory the basic rules are vaguely generic, so that can be crafted more than 1050 years of military history. What saves it are the specific army books and the fact that, at its core, Saga is not a historical simulation of medieval warfare, but telling of a story. The saga of a hero leading his soldiers into battle. Just like 300, the Battle of Thermopylae is film adaptation and retelling of comic book from perspective of Greek narrator, Saga is game retelling of a similar story. Saga gameplay styles and mechanics are adapted to this. A regular soldier has 1 attack, but the army commander has 8 because, well, the story is about it. Granted, his squad also has stakes in the story, but every heroic narrative has a main protagonist, and then, well, there are some extras which are secondary. Everyone knows Achilles, but, well, how many names of his myrmidons do you know? By the same logic, the game also has relatively poor gunplay, because ancient and medieval epics are all about heroes and how is their psychical prowess and, well, contact combat. Not about some nobody with bow executing the hero across the field. I mean, except for the previously mentioned Achilles, but surely when the Trojan War expansion come out, I'm, well, certain that there will be special rule for that. However, aside from the strong heroes and weak shooting, the game acts like, well, any other game from the same era. The miniatures run around the table, shoot at each other, fight with each other, and, well, then take some rest. Because yes, resting. Because Saga has interesting mechanic that most of the game revolve, well, around mastering the rest phase. Soldiers get tired and when they activate multiple times per round or when they fight. Thus, the game brings a tactical level to the game where you need to think about what your men can do and when they need time to break. If you overdo it, it's possible to exhaust the unit until it's incapable of further activations and the enemy can use its fatigue to its advantage, reducing their attacks, defense or shortening the movement, which is also relatively logical and realistic mechanic. Besides fatigue management, the main mechanic of Saga is battle board activation system, which is truly innovative and makes Saga play differently than most other games. Each unit from the certain number of soldiers, heroes automatically, companion knights even if they are alone, common soldiers from 4 and various peasants and similarly quality units from 6 models, generates 1 activation die of 6 which is symbols instead of number, and these are rolled at the beginning of the round and depending on the symbols that are rolled, 3 is the basic symbol, there are 2 rare symbols and 1 special symbol, the units are activated, hero or knights are activated by any symbol, peasants need to rare ones, or special abilities are triggered, which is different for each faction and in the spirit of the faction. Vikings can show Valhalla, and then the Viking player takes few models in the unit to the Warrior's Paradise, and the rest of the squadmate gets one extra attack die. The Anglo-Saxon, on the other hand, have several abilities on the shield wall. The Crusaders can pray to the gods for protection to have armor rerolls. The Byzantines, thanks to more advanced tactics than their historical rivals, can reshuffle the symbols on their dice. The Mongols can run away from the fight. Normans have great knights and could go on forever and forever. Each faction has 10 to 12 special abilities, and the game currently has over 70 factions, so it would be a long list. Likewise, the game contains several historical, or in case of heroes like King Arthur, legendary characters for each faction, which bring new mechanics and abilities or even special units to the game. Byzantium can deploy war engines, Carthage combat elephants, Persia war chariot. Each book also has several units of recruitable mercenaries or bring new mechanics like larger or multiplayer battles, campaign system. Saga has already official 2 campaign systems, along with the fantasy expansions like Age of Magic. Saga offers plenty of options in what and how to deploy, including spells or gunpowder weapons. Although it may sound complicated at the first glance, in reality it's not at all. Players roll the Saga dice at the start of the round, deal them to each ability on battleboard, then activate the units, and aside from starting the round with abilities from battleboard and taking care of fatigue, Saga plays like more or less any other wargame. The basic rules are under 50 pages long and include lots of pictures, explanatory diagrams, etc. So there is no need to worry about any complicated system, even though it might look complicated at the first. The basic rules are also quite cheap. It's not even an expensive investment to try out if it's necessary. In addition to the basic rules, the battle book is also sold, which contains 20 pre-made scenarios and 1 random mission generator. In addition to these 2 books, there are separate books for each era that contain rules for specific faction and their battle board. There are currently books for the Age of Alexander, Hannibal, Age of Invasion, Vikings, Crusaders, and Magic. There are currently one or 2 expansions coming out each year, so no need to worry if there is an era on the list right now and that appeals to you, so it might be coming soon. The next expansion is said to be, either Age of Caesar, so, basically entirety of history of Rome can be played from start to finish, and the others say that it will be Age of Chivalry for his more high medieval knights, so we will see. But it must be said that all the books look modern, have professional level nice graphics. It's really step up from the first edition. As far as historical fidelity goes, given that it's small skirmish scale of combat, the game doesn't have much to be inaccurate about when you meet 40 guys and go sword fighting and spear stabbing. The armies work relatively historically faithful and allow you to build armies primarily as they looked or as general public or player base imagine they should look. Saga has been on market for, it's 13 years and it's still alive. New players are coming and it's clear that Studio Tomahawk care about the game. There are regular FAQs, new expansions with rules, and thanks to large community there is plenty of fun content. Whether it's scenarios or rules for missing factions, if you are not afraid to experiment, anything from early human history to the Renaissance and fantasy can be played through the Saga game engine. So, getting to the verdict, overall, Saga is a great game for fans of ancient medieval history and wargamers who want to try out some new mechanics in the form of battleboard and fatigue management. Despite these unique mechanics, however, it's still a brisk game that is easy to learn even for complete newcomers to the hobby. If you are looking for a game where you can experience historical battles and test your tactical skills, you should definitely try Saga. I recommend you to give it a try. And if you want to see more of wargaming content, feel free to stick on my channel to see more reviews, unboxing, miniature showcase, or ambient music to play as background when you game. So hopefully see you on the next one. Bye!